Hey everybody, hope you're all doing well. My name is Steven, and this is the Storytime channel. Today we have some malicious compliance stories, and our first story of the day is by Ace Cooper. Converted from salary to hourly, best decision ever. I worked for a mid-sized fashion company with around 150 retail stores nationwide as a maintenance and safety coordinator. 4 months into the job, my manager quit and I picked up everything and was doing fine on my own for years. And I was the only person in charge of maintaining the stores and the alarm systems in all the stores. I did get a pay bump, but not a promotion in title. I put my contact number on every store's emergency contact list just in case the primary contacts, usually the store managers, don't pick up their phones in case of emergencies. And the store managers almost always refused to pick up calls during off hours. So my phone would ring at least 2 to 3 times every night. 99% of the times are false alarm, usually caused by window brake sensors getting tripped by vibration from a big truck passing by or a leaf hitting the window. I hated it, but I had to do it because if no one on the emergency contact list picks up the phone, the alarm company automatically calls the police for dispatch, and there are penalties for false alarms, ranging from $50 to $200 per incident after 2 or 3 freebies, varies by location. In 2017, Department of Labor passed a law requiring all employees making under a certain amount of money to be converted to hourly so they can earn overtime. My salary was $800 short of making the cut. I brought it up with HR, stating that an hourly schedule would actually interfere with my duties and an $800 raise in pay would make everything easier. And HR simply said, "Well, that's too bad and we can't do anything about it at the moment." Well, okay. After that conversation, I put my phone on mute and stopped caring about anything outside of my 9 to 5. In hindsight, life was actually so much easier and better that way, and not sure why I even wanted to stay on salary. Months go by without any serious issues, except for the penalties for false alarms starting to pile up. One day, accounting and operations brought me into the office, asking what those costs were. I told them what they were, and operations sent out a memo reminding all store managers that safety is of critical importance and they have to pick up calls from alarm companies. No one bothered asking why there was a huge surge of these additional costs, and I didn't care enough to remind them that it was because of me. Few more months go by, and one morning I woke up to almost 20 missed calls on my cell. Apparently, one of our Florida stores was broken into the night before at around 3 a.m. The store manager tried to get a hold of me because I was the one in charge of requesting and dispatching vendors for things like emergency board up. After an hour of trying to get a hold of me, she eventually started calling up everybody on the hierarchy for help, and I had 6 missed calls from the senior VP of operations alone. Eventually, the director of constructions was able to get a crew to board up the store, but that was almost 3 hours later, and everyone was royally pissed. Unsurprisingly, the second I stepped into the office, I was called into the office with all the senior management in HR and were asked why I was not there to take care of it. And I simply replied, because I already clocked out. The senior VP of operations was obviously not pleased with that answer and said it was my duty and I needed to be on standby at all times to handle these situations, even during off hours. To which I stated, "Oh, so I should be on call then. In that case, I'll have to work with accounting to get properly compensated for my on-call hours once we have a schedule established." The room went silent, and nothing came out of the rather short meeting. Later that afternoon, HR called me into the office again, asking whether I'd like to become salaried again with a pay bump. I said I'll take the pay bump, but I'd rather stay hourly, and walked out. They didn't give me the pay bump. If you knew that a store was going to more or less get robbed without any protection, but the company was blatantly not going to pay you for any time you spent trying to resolve that issue, would you be able to willingly let that happen? Let me know in the comments down below. Our next story is by ALX Walk. You want me to use real bandages for fake injuries? Fine, but it would be a shame if something real happened. Needed background: my country has conscription. That means that every able male between the age of 18 to 35 has to serve in the armed forces for a time. I did mine in the Navy. My specialty was medic, finishing as a petty officer. After you finish the service, you're put in the active reserve list and they can call you in an emergency for refresh courses. Those can last between a day to a month. This happened during my first such course. Also important, despite servicing in the Navy, due to being an essential specialty, I could be called by any branch. First time was the Army. On to the story. I receive a letter to present myself on a certain date in a certain Army base for a refresher course. I knew it would be annoying, but I arrived on that date with my backpack and wearing my navy blue garrison utilities with chevrons on. Immediately I had a problem when a corporal tried to order me to sign for a rifle. Medics carry handguns or don't carry arms at all. After that was sorted, I fell in with the rest of the retrainees, as they called us. We're 20 people ranging in ages from 22 to 45. I noticed that except from me, only one other person is wearing different utilities. Light blue of the Air Force, and he happens to be a doctor. The rest are Army, mostly infantry. After 3 days of basically doing nothing, orders came down that me and the doc would have to join the senior class of officer cadets on their war games. We go to request equipment, and they hand us 2 first aid bags, medium size, with some basic supplies. The doc asked for more supplies. The quartermaster said those supplies were all we were going to get according to regulations. The doc asked for that in writing before he signed anything out, which was provided. So Saturday comes, me and the doc get a ride with the cadets to the exercise area. We set up post in the neutral zone and wait. Our job was to provide first aid if something happened and treat and record any casualties of the war games. Almost immediately, cadet that was acting captain from now on, tried to boss us around, complaining about our setup, our lack of discipline, we were civilians, and our lack of polish. We were there just for legal reasons. The acting captain of the other team was much more relaxed with us. The next morning, the war games begin. Around noon, our first casualties start trickling in. Each casualty tells us the nature of their injury, we record it, and the doc decides if it's a walking wounded, need to spend time in the infirmary, or is off for the rest of the games, which meant staying in the stage area. Due to not being a live ammo exercise and our small amount of supplies, we pretty much give them a paper with their new status. Next day, first thing in the morning, the captain bursts in and he is in a mood. He starts shouting about not doing our job. The following exchange happens. Doc says, "Calm down and explain." The captain says, "You're not doing your jobs. I don't know who my casualties are." Doc says, "We gave them a paper about their status." "That's not good enough. You have to dress their wounds. Do I have to tell you how to be a doctor?" I don't think it's a good use of our little resources. "No, you have to use it so I can know who my casualties are." I still think this is a bad use of resources. "I gave you an order. I'm acting captain and you're just a warrant officer." "Okay, but it's your problem if something happens." The captain stormed off after that. The malicious compliance. A couple of hours later, the first casualties of the day start coming in. I ask the doc what we should do. Doc says, "You heard the man. Full trauma protocol." We exchange evil grins and open up the bags. Anyone coming in gets the full treatment. Bullet wound to the leg, cut the pants open, sterilize the area, pad and bandage and medevac. Head wound, full concussion protocol. Surface head wound, sterilize the area, 3 pads and a couple of bandages to keep them in place. Our supplies are out on the 10th casualty. And then karma strikes. They bring in the captain with a legit sprained ankle. He goes on a rant about bandaging him so he can go back to command. Doc says, "I'm sorry, we're out of supplies. We have to call in for resupply." "What? How can you be out of supplies?" "Despite me telling you we have very little supplies, you ordered us to treat every casualty as it was real. The supplies are finished." The captain started spouting threats while Doc put in for resupply. The aftermath. A couple of the umpires, 2 lieutenants, and the quartermaster, sergeant, brought more supplies. The captain tried and failed miserably to pin the blame on us. The umpires, after hearing his order, shook their heads and removed him immediately from command. According to the quartermaster, the captain was kind of a jerk during training, but got the post because of family connections. For the next 3 days, we went back to our original plan, papers, and treated a couple of real injuries. I don't know what happened to the captain afterwards, but for the rest of the refresher course, we had a good time. Imagine being so dense that during training with fake injuries, they want you to use actual medical supplies. How dumb and wasteful is that? That definitely seems like some karma. This next story is by Psycho Steve 10mm, Why I Am Against Bring Your Own Devices for Work. I was working contract security at a site that was a government site. I had requested a cell phone and a camera to be added to the site for months, but I was told that the site did not warrant it. I documented a break-in and started documenting things on camera on my cell phone. I called the police and the client to notify things that happened. The weather started to change and it started raining really hard. My initial photographs were going to be needed and the police wanted to take my phone for the chain of custody. I told them that I could give them the phone for $1,200, which is what it would cost me to replace the phone. My security company told me if I did not give up my phone, I would be fired. I said, okay, I am fired. Then I drove off the site. As per policy, any information from a site that is taken on a personal device has to be deleted once an employee is fired to get your last check. I went to pick up my last check and showed them the factory reset to get my last check. I had been subpoenaed to testify in a court case about 6 months after I was fired. I go up and I am asked to produce the evidence I had recorded from that night. I tell the judge that I had to show a factory wipe in order to get my last paycheck from my security company. I found out later that the insurance company did not pay out the claim for the break-in damages, and my previous security company lost a $2 million a year contract. The guy who was arrested for the break-in walked due to lack of evidence. If that company has a $2 million a year contract, they can afford a cell phone and a camera to be on site. That blows my mind that a security company would not provide those devices. They deserve to lose that contract. And our final story of the day is by Blue, You're My Boy. Work a double and get written up, or... In high school, a few friends and myself worked at a local chain restaurant. We were fully able to run the day shift, but had never really broken down the equipment and closed up for the evening. One particular night, a few of the night shift had called in sick. We were asked to pull a double and close the restaurant, which we did. Essentially worked from 10 a.m. until after midnight. Myself and my 3 friends and a manager. We were really tired but felt that we had done the right thing and helped out the company. Then the next day, the 4 of us come into work another day shift. The day manager pulls us into her office one by one and informs us that she would need to write us up because we hadn't properly cleaned and filtered the fry grease. Regardless of our leaning in for a double, having never closed or been trained on closing procedures, and having been given permission by the night manager to leave, meaning all closing work had been completed. After a quick chat with my friends, it was aligned that I was going to push back on the write-up, and if the day manager insisted on writing us up, we would quit. I informed the manager that we were collectively not going to sign the write-up slips. Her alternative threat was that we would be fired, to which I informed her that if she insisted on writing us up for helping out, pulling a double, not being trained, and having been released by the night manager, then we would quit, collectively, immediately. She responded with, "If you don't sign the write-up, then you will be fired." A staring contest follows. I eventually break in with an, "Okay, I guess we're fired then." We turned in our hats, quit symbolically, and left. It was really amazing. My friend quit mid-burger prep. My other friend simply walked off the cash register in the middle of taking an order. We clocked out and walked out the back, leaving only the day manager in the restaurant. Customers in line, customers at the drive-thru. Later that same day, we decided to return to our place of prior employment to have dinner. The night shift must have still been sick, as the entire restaurant was staffed with managers from nearby restaurants, same chain, including our day manager, who was now pulling her own double, and the night manager that had released us the prior evening. There was nothing better than eating our burgers and watching the management staff fail at every station and knowing that their pride, lack of rational flexibility, and threats had resulted in one of the most righteous meals we ever ate together. Needless to say, we were all employed at the next chain restaurant down the street in a matter of days. It's been nearly 30 years, and I remember that standoff, her ultimatum, and our walkout like it was last week. For some people, a job at a fast food chain is all they can get, and they can't afford to lose that job. But for some people, they're just a bunch of college kids that don't really care if they lose the job or not. You're gonna be overly petty, not rational, and threaten them with their jobs because they failed to do something that they were never trained for? It's just a little disappointing that all those other managers were able to show up and help out. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So if you have a favorite story of the day, let me know which story and why in the comments down below. But besides that, if you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a like, and if you haven't, subscribe and turn notifications on so you'll never miss an upcoming video. No matter what you do, whether it's just viewing the video, liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, I appreciate the heck out of it. Every little thing that you do helps the channel grow that much more, and I can't thank you enough for it. So until next time, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll be right here next time on the Storytime channel.